Women's basketball has never had this much positive momentum. After years of the fledgling league dealing with low attendance, bad press, and an overall entitled attitude of players constantly dying on the hill of a lot of losing arguments, things finally seem to be changing. The WNBA has been given the golden ticket in this year's draft class, primarily in Caitlin Clark, but don't count out Angel Reese and Cameron Brink. After record-setting viewership, social media engagement, and even gambling entering the picture, the hype created in the last 2 years in college basketball is handing the baton to the WNBA. And in my opinion, this year's draft class will either make or break the WNBA, proving once and for all if women's professional basketball can crawl out of the hole it's dug itself, or if indeed the WNBA is where careers go to die. The WNBA has had rookies come in with a lot of hype before. Brittany Griner because of her height and sheer dominance in college, Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi after winning multiple national championships at UConn. But since coming into the WNBA, the hype of these players in the national spotlight has faded over their playing careers, never really matching the height of their college days. But now the WNBA has Caitlin Clark, and her hype is to a level the WNBA has never seen. This season will set records in ticket sales, merchandise sales, and TV viewership. There are no more excuses for this league. If Caitlin Clark fails, the league fails, and it needs to reevaluate itself and how it operates. For the past 2 seasons, Caitlin Clark was women's college basketball. There have never been more eyes on women's college basketball than there were in this past season. And while a large part of it was because of Caitlin Clark, there were a ton of other positive factors that led to this renaissance of sorts. The natural rivalry with Angel Reese after the 2023 national championship created the classic sports storyline that you see in boxing all the time. And the rematch this year in 2024 lived up to the hype, creating a rubber match that will now play out in the WNBA. This situation could not be any more ironically a slam dunk. Then you have players like Cameron Brink and others who, through NIL deals in college, have built up an online presence and hundreds of thousands of followers on social media. These followers are now going to be exposed to the WNBA through these rookies' influencer status. But be wary. Cameron and these other women basketball influencers still need to go out and ball, because if you need to lean on good looks as a professional athlete, you will quickly become just a model. The timing could not be better for the WNBA. Their TV contract with ESPN is up for renewal after the 2025 season, and the ratings boost that is coming with Caitlin Clark will be a huge negotiation bargaining chip when talks for a new deal start. And in a good move by ESPN, since the WNBA's broadcasting rights are owned by ESPN, they've combined their other property in the Pat McAfee show to make Caitlin Clark a regular fixture on the show.
Yeah, I'll be like a weekly guest on here, I guess, if you want me to.
Deal.
That kind of exposure and regularity could keep the momentum going and market the league's biggest new star on the network's most popular show. In the past, the WNBA does not do a great job at marketing their stars. In 2014, Brittany Griner helped lead the Phoenix Mercury to a championship, but then was immediately involved in a domestic violence case. Then years later was involved in the infamous Russia imprisonment incident. Kinda hard to hype her up and sell that to the general public without getting clowned on. But even with the clean-cut Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi, the league just calls them the GOATs, and that's the extent of it. I mean, Diana Taurasi alone has averaged 20 points per game for 20 years. That kind of production and longevity is insane. She should have been the poster child of the league, used like Kobe and MJ were for the NBA. But she was never really utilized like that to a meaningful extent. The culture of the WNBA has shifted over time. When the league first started, they were very, how do I put this, wholesome?
That's not it, but it's close.
All about empowering girls and showing them that they could have a professional league of their own and do something that they once thought was impossible. But in the last 10 years or so, the league has shifted. They have catered more and more into the LGBT community.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Now, it's not necessarily bad to have a pride night. Every NBA team has one. But the WNBA leans in hard.
How's it coming?
Huh? What do you think?
It's a little gay.
But focusing in on a relatively small faction of fans instead of trying to get as many fans in the building as possible is cutting off your nose to spite your face. You can make a positive and inclusive space without tying yourself to a movement with such close ties to politics, which sports fans unanimously hate regardless of the gender of the league. The WNBA needs to stop comparing itself to the NBA. The NBA has a 50-year head start on the WNBA. The WNBA needs to focus on itself and continue to build on the momentum that this draft class is bringing in, and try to get better year after year. Getting lost in these arguments about getting paid what the men are getting paid is distracting you from that goal, and turning off a lot of potential fans. Dying on these hills that could easily be debunked sends the wrong message to the general public. Making their perceived injustices a political issue does not gain them anything, especially when simple math is not on their side. There is nothing wrong with women's sports. Are they men's sports? No. But they do serve a purpose in the lives of the women and girls who play them, and the people who support and watch them. If you were outraged by Caitlin Clark's rookie contract, do something about it. Go to a game, buy a t-shirt, at the very least watch it on TV. Help this league stop losing $12 million a year. The WNBA also needs to be proactive. There are several things this league could do to grow. First thing is to get back to that original wholesome mentality. Make WNBA games more family-friendly oriented, or at least make it an entertaining place to be. For example, I love going to Arizona Rattlers games. Like the WNBA, the Indoor Football League is a much lower level of talent of its sport, but their games are entertaining and worth a weekend day. The WNBA needs to foster an atmosphere like the Rattlers. Maybe not the same atmosphere, but the women's basketball equivalent. The WNBA also needs to be very aware of its PR. All players need to be on the same page, and avoid bad press in the media at all costs. They don't need stars taking shots at Caitlin Clark before she's even played a game in the league. Diana Taurasi throwing shade at Caitlin gives the same energy as Darius Miles' comments about LeBron before he even played in the league.
I don't think you can really just bring a high school player in and really just think your team gonna really turn around like that.
Then you have Asia Wilson and other players making catty comments about Caitlin Clark's 8-figure shoe deal. This isn't what the league needs. Oh no, women are jealous of other women. This league gets enough shit as it is. You don't need to write the jokes for them. But the most important thing the WNBA needs to do is become ambassadors within their own communities. Now, I'm sure they already do a decent amount of charity work and appearances, but they need to do more. Have a presence at every major community event. For example, here in Phoenix, every April, we run Pat's Run for Pat Tillman and the Pat Tillman Foundation. If the Phoenix Mercury participated as a team and made an impact, it would endear them to the Valley because Pat's Run is a uniquely Arizona event. The WNBA can make themselves staples within the community through youth girls basketball programs and reach the people who will actually attend their games. The WNBA offseason lines up with every high school's basketball season. Just spend 3 weeks sending players to drop in on high school practices and meet high school players. That kind of presence is invaluable to young athletes. On a personal note, Diana Taurasi once showed up at my tiny high school in South Burlington, Vermont. Now, she was only there because she played at UConn with a girl who graduated from my school 6 years earlier. But just this tiny interaction where she just walked by me is a story I still tell 17 years later. God, I'm old. But the point is, the more you do within your community, the more relationships and fans you create. The WNBA needs to go all grassroots because they don't have 75 years of history like the NBA does. Caitlin Clark is definitely going to help the NBA in the short term. Whether or not it's long term is up to the WNBA. And it's time for the WNBA to help themselves out. Because to me, the attitude of WNBA players is entitled. As if just because they're professional athletes, which is impressive in its own right, that doesn't mean they deserve what other athletes get. Because at the end of the day, They are operating a failing business. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Proud of you. If this is your first time here, go ahead and subscribe, but also comment down below. What do you think the WNBA needs to do to improve fans and keep the momentum of Caitlin Clark going? And other than that,